Scoot McNary is just draining logo threes in every scene he's in.
Man, Scoot McNary has picked up the mantle of John Hawks. He's like TV John Hawks.
That's the right comp.
Hello and welcome to Expected Own Goals, Why Our Knees edition. I am your host, Eric Morgan.
And I am Evan Davis. This will timestamp when we're recording this. Literally 40 minutes ago, we found out that Olivia Moultrie injured her ACL and will be out for the rest of the season. So great note to start on this week, and not a Thorns-focused episode. But boy, oh boy, maybe we quickly just discuss that news. Pretty significant, to say the least.
Yeah, now, the one thing that wasn't specified in the news brief was whether she had torn her ACL or whether she had damaged her, sort of the extent of the injury itself. The idea that she's been put on the SCI list is bad and suggests that they don't expect her to be playing again for 3 months at least. And so one has to hope that Moultrie's, the level of damage here is not a full tear, but is severe enough and that the Portland Thorns have looked upon their prospects for the rest of the season and thought, not worth risking it. That would be the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is it is a race against time for her to get back in shape for the World Cup, and probably her World Cup is over.
Yeah, but you're right to parse the language. If it's not a tear, then maybe she's ready in the spring. So everybody just has to kind of cross their fingers. But yeah, for the next 3 months, in our average projections, taking Moultrie out of the Thorns lineup, they drop from in the mix for the top 4 to lower playoff spot in our estimations, our best guess estimations. So that certainly feels more realistic based on how we feel about their defense. And so if you just take one of those attacking weapons that's really boosting one of those projection models in our average, then 6th, 7th place feels right.
I mean, yeah, 6th, 7th place feels spiritually correct, and if you look at the table, it's not that far off correct anyway. But I think it's worth saying that Moultrie really is that impactful that you take her out and you cost your team meaningful points. And I certainly think that any version of the Portland Thorns this year that got into the playoffs and won a title was probably going to need Olivia Moultrie pulling strings at the center of it. And the plus side for the Thorns is Morgan Weaver and Kaya Hanks returning at least allows, though from a different place on the field, the same kind of attacking production. It's just Moultrie was kind of the only thing linking that midfield to that forward line.
Yeah, and Dana Castellanos is not only not going to give you that ability, but also probably isn't going to help you defend the middle of the park very well, which is a big crisis point for how the Thorns get out of this.
Again, I suppose that the Thorns, assuming they still have some wiggle room, there's still time in the transfer window for them to do something, but I'm not holding my breath for that. This is actually, bizarrely an appropriate conversation to have to lead off this episode that we're going to, while focusing on North Carolina, talk about what happens when you lose a superstar and how you adjust. And losing Olivia Moultrie is, based on position weighted net G plus this year, is basically like losing Matsukubo. These are roughly equivalent attackers, and we thought it was going to be a huge problem when North Carolina lost Manaka. And, we'll get into it and mixed results. But before we get there, let's talk about what else happened this weekend.
Yeah, well, there's another game involving the absence of a superstar that did not go their way against a team they probably still should have beaten, and that's Orlando losing the Big Perp Derby 3-1 at home against Racing Louisville.
Boy, that team without Barbara Banda is a really, really bad team.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just Banda. It's like, Carrie Abello has been missing due to injury and is just getting her way back. Haley Mace had been missing and is only just kind of getting back into the starting lineup. They still don't have Oyan Hernandez back. So there are defensive spots where they could really use some reinforcement. And also, Anna Morehouse's shot stopping is starting to look less impressive by the day. In fact, she is at the bottom of the leaderboard in the NWSL in that particular category. So
she's having a rough year.
it's a rough year, and so like you are losing your main attacking weapon, but also you are losing a lot of your really significant defensive pieces, which I think is more the story, especially just in the last few weeks, of Orlando's recent form, because it's not that they're like losing games 1-0. They're losing games 3-1, 5-1, like they're getting blown out. Like it's really dire. And this is a team whose identity was built on their defensive tactical structure, but without the personnel to make it all sing, it kind of looks like this.
Yeah, I think that this is such an interesting game because it ended up being the story of two teams trending in completely opposite directions. Louisville, who heretofore had been left for dead, have picked up 10 points from their last 5 fixtures, which puts them on the form table in a really interesting place. And their next 3 fixtures are against Boston, Seattle, and Chicago. So if you squint and Louisville were to keep this up even a little bit, suddenly, do we need to talk about racing Louisville in the playoff picture? I think the answer
Absolutely
remains
not.
no.
1000% no. I'm sorry. This whole form thing is a nice story that they can like hang their, hold their heads high on. But like they're
It's actually
generating
them it's them coming back to what they actually are. Like,
yeah, but it's too late. I mean, they on points per game, they're still 15th place?
they have 18 games played and 17 points. It's very bad. I suppose that I will eat my hat if they rip off 9 points from the next 3, and we can talk about them, still being probably outside the playoff line at that point. But until then, they are just putting in some interesting performances sandwiched with a game against Kansas City that was bludgeoning.
Yeah.
And Emma Sears still has a transfer request out there. It doesn't stop her from pumping them in. I love
probably
that.
Helps her.
Yeah. I love that when we talked to Emma Sears earlier this year, she talked about like her preferential shooting location on the field and like really described it exactly. And then pumped in 2 goals, one with the left, one with the right, from roughly the same spot.
Yeah.
That is her preferential shooting location.
It's very useful if you are, quote unquote, so predictable in like where you want to take a chance from that you can do it with both feet. You know? At least you throw in some wrinkle of unpredictability and
she cooked Rafaele for the left-footed shot. And then I feel like when she gets that right-footed shot off, it's because she's already cooked her defender. It's very impressive. But Louisville put together a result that, they probably deserve that, all things considered.
Another silly derby.
The Rocky Mountain High derby, the John Denver to There's Nobody Named Salt Lake derby. Yeah, that was not much of a game until the end, at which point the wheels came off. Tatum Milazzo with a screamer, and then Janine Sonis with a counter screamer free kick. Honestly, one of my favorite kinds of free kicks. To the goalie side corner pocket. Basically, instead of trying to go over the wall or around the wall, you pick the spot and you dare the goalie to basically stop the thing you're putting where they've said they'll cover. And it was impressive. This is exactly the kind of result that Denver need to pull out if they're going to make this playoff charge. And I think for Utah, you can just look at the top line here. This is just a deeply unfortunate result. The XG was very close to 2-1 in Utah's favor, and they lose the game 2-1 to Denver.
Yeah, and even after you adjust for game state, they still were decidedly the better side. And Milazzo, it's a screamer in that she just kicks the shit out of it, but
yes,
at the top of the 6-yard box, that's one that's not going to miss pretty much any time.
If you hit it like that on frame, nobody's stopping it. That's
exactly
correct. We have 2-4-3 fixtures this weekend.
Yeah, we'll save one of them for the end.
Which is wild. But the first one, which we sort of alluded to, Boston 3, Portland 4. I don't even know what to make of this game because Portland was up 3-0 in record speed in 13 minutes. And then caught it's like, which of Torden's 3 goals do you like the best? I believe that's the fastest hat trick by any player in league history. Certainly the fastest. There have not been very many Thorns hat tricks, but definitely the fastest hat trick in Thorns history. Pietro Torden put on a show and now leads the league in goal contributions.
A couple of those goals were a little bit fortunate in that they were long distance bombs. that just got caught in the right spot.
I don't know if I feel like the free kick, I think Casey Murphy, who gets a full hand to it, probably could have done better on that. But it's a really well struck free kick from the edge of the box. The second one, I think of that as, I know that the XG on that is not high because it's from 30 yards. But if you get a ball sitting up at that distance with the goalie off their line, all you really have to do is just put the thing anywhere on frame. And I think for pros, that little bouncing volley is a lot more achievable. I mean, that one, the XG on that shot is what? It's still rated higher than you'd think for that distance.
Probably because there's not a lot of defensive cover in front of her, and the goalie is out of position.
Yeah, exactly. But whether you want to classify this as fast break, I kind of look at it as fast break. It's a direct ball over the top. For the second weekend in a row, a goalkeeper assist. Yeah. This time, Casey Murphy, not the distributor, but the punished party.
And
but
it's a goal that we kind of alluded to when we guested on the Rose City Breakdown last week, that might have to be the attacking approach going forward, which is have Mackenzie Arnold or a center back just hoof it over the top to get it to your forward line. And that's basically what happened in that. And now with Olivia Moultrie out, it really might have to become plan A,
But Pietra Torden is a really good, she's a really good distributor, and she's also really good direct to goal. And this game was like I loved her quotes about being like, just sort of about her halftime interview where she seems like really loopy. And she's like, yeah, man, it's like I'm watching myself out there. Like I'm not even there.
She's very quickly developing a interview performance style, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
It's very Bill Walton.
Yeah, she's got a sort of space cadet thing, which is funny for a Princeton grad or for a Princeton student. But yeah, that's just like really elite. And then Portland's defense on the other end of this really collapsed per usual.
Certainly the back end of the first half. I mean, they managed it a little bit better in the second half until the amount of good.
I mean, they gave up over an XG in the second half alone. So it was not, I don't know how well managed it was. It was Mackenzie Arnold it was Boston not finishing and Mackenzie Arnold making some pretty decent saves. But yeah,
I mean, most of that XG is from the Isata chance, which isn't a great chance. But they just didn't let Boston really come into the game except for a couple of really bad mistakes. But that's always Portland's defensive problem this year, is that you can manage the game fairly well until you just collapse in a handful of moments, and it's ugly. Their defensive collapses are really ugly looking.
Without Moultrie now, it just got a lot harder to beat teams 4-3. Mm-hmm. They did it this weekend without Moultrie. Boston is going to be one of the easier teams that they face.
I mean, they still got a pretty,
they still have a soft schedule, but
it'll be downhill schedule, but yeah.
Let's go on. We'll save the other 4-3. Crazy that we had two of those this weekend. Let's go Kansas City, Houston. Boy, do Kansas City need Temwa back. They got unlucky, if you want to use that term. I kind of think that they got the result that was not that far from what they deserved because the pen felt fair. But 1-1 to Houston after not really capitalizing on the vast majority of their chances, all of which, I mean, their shot cluster's great looking. They just didn't finish.
And you think that's their fault?
I think that a lot of the XG that gets assessed to them in this game, there are some like headers that were contested that I don't think were particularly good I think that the XG slightly overstates the individual chances in this particular instance. Again, XG is just much better at a season level. But yeah, I don't know. They dominated stretches of this game. Croy Bethune still looks great, but they don't have anybody to get on the end of these balls in really effective ways. And in the second half, they created half an XG. So, with the lead, they sort of invited Houston back into the game. I'm not like crazy about it as a performance. Again, I still would love to see like the Kansas City with and without Temwa splits. And I think that this team is like still a playoff team, but without Temwa, not particularly impressive, which is a bummer. But they'll have her back. when she stops qualifying for things like the World Cup. What was your read on this game?
I think we can move on.
Why not?
Because it feels like you just always are looking for a way to say that Kansas City was bad. And I just don't understand. I mean, like before the penalty, the quality chance split in this game is 5-2 in Kansas City's favor.
Yeah. And yet I still felt like, as I was like, I would love Kansas City to be better than this. Look, it's a bad Houston team. It's a bad Houston team that they didn't put away and then gave a penalty to. And I feel like that's not, at some point, like, you do actually have to execute on this game. And I felt like they kind of didn't. They had a great first half and they didn't punish from there. I don't know. Do you feel like, I mean, I suppose it just comes down to, do you believe that this sport should always be won by the team that has higher XG? Or do you recognize that this sport is like home to lots and lots of different kinds of variants, and that in the grand scheme of things, the underlying numbers suggest Kansas City is a good team, a very good team? And I think that as we watch these performances, I see little cracks in here and I see inconsistency. And frankly, without Temo Chewinga, I see a team that is not, sure, they can dunk on Louisville in a midweek with Louisville traveling, but I see a team that is consistently coughing up points to sometimes better teams, but also this is like a precipitous fall from who they were last year on some level.
Which was never going to be repeatable. I mean, we have...
No, of course, but even still, it was never going to be repeatable. But it's still a team that has 30 points from 19 fixtures. Like, you can't see what doesn't work with them.
I think that the use of the word should is a very loaded one in the way that you're using it, because no, it's not, nor is it ever possible in any sport for the team that quote unquote played better to win all the time. But the idea that like the better team wins most of the time is just as equally absurd an idea. And
no, I mean, the better team wins a lot of the time. I just feel like Kansas City have not been putting in the performances that they are good at taking apart a bad team.
And this is also why
last weekend.
This is also why I've spent so much time trying to develop a way to look at these underlying numbers that accounts for opponent quality, game state, home field advantage. And they're still in second place on that adjusted XG differential leaderboard behind San Diego. So I've tried to parse the numbers every single which way to see where
it's
the vulnerabilities lie outside of the very small sample of games where they didn't have Chewinga playing with them.
And what are they putting up without Chewinga?
That's just the thing. It's a massive drop-off, but removing Chewinga from anybody's lineup is a massive drop-off.
By the way, this is all I'm like, yes, I agree that it's a massive drop-off without the player that is definitively a problem and that causes matchup problems for you across the field, and that Kansas City hasn't found Croy Bethune is creating, but that they haven't found another option is a problem. I think that you think that these numbers are always gospel, and
I don't think that. It's just that we have 19 games of sample to look at, and if you add it all up, they look like they're still quite good. And even by the points total, they're still a playoff team. For all of the hemming and hawing,
oh, for sure. Yeah, and Marissa Jordan has been bad. That also needs to be stated.
It's been, and that's the other thing. How can we really judge the last 4 games in Chewinga's and Cooper's absence without accounting for the fact that they've also been missing Lorena?
I mean, Lorena also is coming off a season that nobody expected her to repeat. But yeah, Marissa Jordan has made some blunders. I look at that team and, the home road split of it all, I don't care that much for it. But what is their record on the road now? It's 2-1-7 because they got a draw at the weekend. They just strike me as a team with a lot of very real vulnerabilities. With Chewinga, very good team. Second, third best team in the league. Without Chewinga, 7th best team in the league, 6th best team in the league.
And
I don't
you
know.
don't see any of the similar or a similar volume or even close to a similar volume of vulnerabilities in San Diego, North Carolina, Gotham, Washington, or Utah?
No, because the teams have so much more balanced talent. Because like the outsized influence of Temwa Chawinga is so extreme that like, I mean, look, she's the best position weighted net G plus player again this year. You go and look at the individuals beyond that, you know, Croy Bethune is doing great stuff, but the rest of the team is like not particularly standout in that regard. And, you know, top to bottom, I feel like Gotham is a better built team. Washington's a better built team. San Diego's a better built team at this point, like in terms of their performances. Yeah. I mean, do you not?
I don't think that we are going to be able to persuade each other on this, so I'm not sure what the value is in
No,
continuing to hammer out the same idea. Like, because it's not just Bethune. I mean, Debinha's on 0.11 net G plus, Cooper's on 0.11 as well. Like, it's not just Chawinga. And you compare the drop off between Chawinga and the rest.
we should isolate Chawinga games and see what happens to everybody else's stuff. Because I think that this is, they are a team that continue to fail to impress, at least me. And they are a team that Evan seems to have to defend every week.
Look, I'm the asshole. I know that. Everybody else thinks this team isn't good without Chawinga in it. I've got nothing to stand on. I get it. So what's the point in arguing about it?
I don't think that you're the asshole. I think that you should be making the argument that you're making. I think that's what's of value here.
It's just the same thing every single week.
There are times in which you watch a team and then you look at the underlying performances, and it's usually in relation to overperformance, where you're like, in the case of Portland earlier this year, it's like they just can't keep getting away with this. The flip side scenario, which is what Kansas City is, where the underlying numbers are really good and then the performances are very mediocre, you can say that they're getting unlucky, or you can start actually watching what isn't working. And I feel like with Kansas City, there are, particularly when you take Chawinga out of the equation, there are like very real systemic problems that exist in their ability to create chances, defend in transition, that make them, again, still a good team, but a team that I'm not surprised is in seventh.
I just don't know how it all comes down to that, when also they've been missing Cooper and they've been missing Lorena, and earlier in the season they missed Debinha for a chunk of time. Like, and then also they had the Ali Sentner problem to deal with. Like, there's never been really any moment when they've had the correct version of the starting 11 in place, you know?
Agreed. That I agree with. And when they do, hopefully soon, maybe they'll make a stretch run and kill it in the playoffs. I would welcome that. Let's move on. Talk Chicago Stars BFC.
What's there to talk about?
It was a 0-0. Oh,
that's a game I wish I didn't watch all of. I'll tell you that.
No shit. That's a game that I can't have back. I feel bad for Bay. They created more than enough opportunities. Katie Atkinson's numbers will continue to look stellar.
Yeah, she's been the best shot stopper in the league up to this point.
Yeah. Some goals were chalked off in this game, but I believe this puts Chicago at, I'm going to double check this, but I believe Chicago has failed to score in 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, 13 games this season.
It's incredible.
Chicago, I mean, like, this is, the question at this point is this version of the Chicago Stars the worst team to ever play in this league?
I mean, that's how they have been tracking for the last couple of months. And yeah. I don't think there's really much to change that, especially because Swanson got subbed on and then got subbed off.
Also a knee.
Yeah. And if Swanson is all of a sudden going to be out for like significant chunks of time, you add that to the Heitema absence, and it's very possible they may not score a goal again for the rest of the year. I mean, it's you laugh because it's like kind of true.
There are crazier statements than Chicago might not score again this year. They have 12 games to go. I would set the over underlined at goals they score at 5.5. Like, I think that they are.
I'm taking the under.
Yeah, I think that 5 or below. Let's make that bet. And in some sort of meaningful way, if Chicago, God, that's a really low line. 5.5. 5.5 is the line. We'll figure out the bet. 5.5 is the line. 12 games to go. If Chicago manage 6 goals, I win. If they don't, I'm going to be doing something stupid.
It's just madness to consider that, like, I could very easily win this bet.
Yeah, I mean, they've got 9 from 18. I don't know why we would expect them to do a lot. Like,
and those were games with Swanson in them.
Yeah, and who knows how long she'll be out for. It's truly one of the worst teams I've ever watched play.
So much so that Emma Coates seemed to believe that Martin Hugren did not act with gentlemanly decorum at the end of the game, and she seemed pretty pissed off at him during the post-match handshakes. So that's a perfect transition to another Scandinavian coach potentially pissing off a British woman on the touchline. Let's talk about Seattle 2, Angel City 2.
The actual post-game blow-up of the weekend.
Yeah.
What happened there?
I think it's because of the rash, not called or not correctly called tackle that Emily Sams puts in, like, right at the end of the game. Like, she kind of like goes over the top.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a rugby tackle. And I'm sure that Laura Harvey was pretty upset about that. But Harvey reacted as though Leif Schmerud like clenched her hand like really, really hard during the handshake, and that's what pissed her off. And then Scott Parkinson, who's the assistant, like, stepped in to make sure she didn't go over the line, but then he went a little crazy. Yeah, it was a fucking mess. I mean, this was a back and forth game. Like, the tensions were high. Both teams pumped a lot of chances in. Both teams traded leads and come from behinds. Angel City had the lead, and then Seattle got the lead within 2 minutes of equalizing, and then Priska Chalufia, God bless you for playing this game after just getting eliminated from WAFCON like a week ago, managed to equalize again. So it was just very back and forth and very, very tetchy. And so, tensions seemed to boil over for Laura Harvey, and maybe Leif Schmerud also did not comport himself well. I did not see him offer comment on what happened, but I did see that Laura Harvey was like, he like clenched my hand as we shook it, and that was not okay. So it was all weird.
Yeah, I feel like, first off, I keep thinking about that Emma Hayes interview where she says that women recover faster than men, because that is the only explanation for Priska Chalufia catching a flight from Morocco to Seattle and showing up and being able to play like mere days later.
Yeah.
What an incredible substitute performance. I still have no idea what part of her foot she hit that goal with, but it's a perfect chip. It kind of looked like she hit it with the ankle bone. It was, who cares? It was perfect all the same. I feel a little bad for Seattle in this game because I did feel like they scored 2 really high quality goals in terms of just like the creation.
This is one of their better attacking performances of the season.
Absolutely. And it was paired with a pretty good defensive performance. Should you let Giselle Thompson in on her left foot? Probably not, but it was a good finish. And then Chalufia just had a moment of magic. And this felt like Seattle receiving what they often dish out, which is a result that you're kind of like, how is this a draw? And this was also, as we set up in last week's episode, the most consequential game of the weekend as far as playoff implications are concerned.
And then neither of their positions really changed all that much.
Yeah, and I think you could say advantage Angel City only because this was Seattle's home game to sort of take the win, and
they didn't.
And they didn't, and
I'm sure that was another reason Harvey was running hot at the end, because she knew that.
Yeah, and Angel City still sits, 8 goals in goal differential above Seattle in the table, but tied on points. I do think that goal differential, like with 13 games to play for both of them, that is a huge issue for Seattle if it goes down to the wire.
Yeah,
they need to find ways to pump them in.
And speaking of Priska coming back, we didn't shout out that Aisata Traore also came back and played for Boston off the bench.
Yeah, and created a huge chance as well. That's nuts. What else do we have?
San Diego and Gotham.
Man, I wanted this to just be like such a great game, and it was.
But it's that thing, right? Like, these are 2 of the best teams in the league who kind of play similarly in a lot of ways, just kind of canceling each other out.
That's right. And I knew that when it really felt like when Jaden Shaw scored at the end of the first half, we were looking at a game that was not going to open back up a lot.
Well, it's not for lack of trying by Gotham. Like, they put a lot
they tried
of
to put it
in,
away. Yeah.
But they weren't always like the highest of quality chances.
No, they did not create it. They did not create a volume of good chances in the second half. They created a volume of shots. And San Diego, they did a really great job limiting San Diego for the vast majority of the second half. I think you leave this feeling pretty confident in Gotham's ascent to, I mean, at this point, the models have them 50% likely to win the Shield.
Yeah, they're at the top of our projection board on 58 or 59 points.
Wouldn't it be something if Gotham won the Shield and then got bounced by the 8 seed?
I mean, it would be chickens coming home to roost. For Idaval's case, he didn't do himself a whole lot of favors by, not starting Kenza Dali until she had to come in as an injury replacement for Kimi Ascanio, and then Ludmila never got off the bench. So
yeah.
His best progression and his best chance-taking weapons were not in this contest from first whistle. So that might help to explain a little bit why Gotham was able to contain them pretty well.
It strikes me as if he was fine with a 0-0 from the jump.
Especially getting the result against Washington the week or two before.
Mm-hmm. The weekend before.
Yeah.
That's right. But, San Diego's still a good team. Gotham, there is a very funny scenario, now that we've talked about Kansas City, where Kansas City falls to the 8th seed and knocks out Gotham, even though they are, as underlying numbers suggest, no worse than 3rd or 4th. That would be an exact comeuppance. That would be divine retribution for Kansas City a year after being hands down the best team in the league, getting bounced by a trap game tough 8 seed to become the trap 8 team and knock out the Shield winners.
Soccer gods don't always like to balance the scales, but sometimes they do.
I just don't think Kansas City can drop enough points for Angel City or Seattle to catch them. That would require both. That would require Angel City and Seattle being different teams than who they are. And let's finish this weekend up with the other 4-3, arguably the game of the season.
Certainly in terms of entertainment value.
Yeah, North Carolina 4, the Washington Spirit 3.
Yeah, this is gonna be a lead into us talking about what North Carolina has become in the wake of Manaka Matsukubo leaving, which has been pretty schizoid, pretty chaotic organization when it comes to week-by-week results at the very least.
But a team that's trending in the right direction.
Quite emphatically in the right direction, as a matter of fact. Under the hood, they, even after you adjust for game state and opposition quality, they were still probably the worst team against Washington at the weekend, but game state went back and forth quite a bit throughout the entire contest. And it just is a symbol of how well built North Carolina's counterattacking approach has become, especially when you don't have a facilitator at Manaka's level anymore, that the creation is being put in different pockets of the field, namely in pockets of the field where Ashley Sanchez is already hanging out. So
yes, that's right.
If you look at their expected assists spread between the games they played before the international break and the games they played after the international break, all of a sudden moving Feli Rauk back into the starting 11 and having her be the progression node between those two fullbacks is a pretty advantageous, because it means that Rauk is feeding Sanchez rather than Ryan Williams feeding Ellie Schlegel. And that feels like a good place to try and create an overload.
Agreed. I think that as we looked at this game, Washington came out of the chute and held the record for fastest 3 goals scored in NWSL history for all of, 46 hours, 40 hours, somewhere in there, until Portland snatched it away from them. But Washington looked shell-shocked for the entire first half, and this has sort of also been North Carolina's MO since losing Manaka, which is, instead of becoming a more balanced or more defensive team, becoming a team that just has doubled and tripled down on oppressing the opponents with their attack and essentially brute forcing goals in and chances in and being open to counter punches.
Yeah. And that has worked like it did against Orlando or midweek last week against Denver.
And it should have worked against Utah.
It also worked really, really well against Utah, even though they lost that game. But even after adjusting for the game state and the fact that North Carolina was going to pour it on after going behind, they still kicked the ever-living daylights out of Utah. But then you also could get a game like the one a few weeks ago against Bay, where they lost 3-0. They lost the XG split quite definitively, but they were trying to be the protagonist on the road and take it to Bay FC, and it did not work at all.
And Bay FC went out and had one of their best games of the season, and it was purely playing Route 1 balls over the top to Carly Lima to catch this over-committed North Carolina team on the break. Yeah. And so it does seem like what was interesting about this weekend's fixture, and then we'll sort of get to the broader stakes of this, is that North Carolina a little bit let off the gas, but really, really exposed themselves and let Washington back into this game. And once Washington had a toehold in this game, really had little in the way of countermeasures to Washington taking this from 0-3 to 3-3. And then
literally within 5 minutes, they got it to within a goal, and then extra time or stoppage time happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a, the stoppage time of this game, Bernal levels this thing. And then, of all people, Natalie Jacobs on a bombing run forward catches a Feli Rauk ball and clips it perfectly past Sandy McIver. Yeah, what do we even make of this team? Is it, first off, how good are the North Carolina Courage right now? Where do you rank them as in terms of not just in recent form, but if you were power ranking these teams, where are they in the NWSL for you?
Yeah, well, they offer a really weird spot for themselves because of good teams, especially in the last several weeks, since we came back from the summer break. There really hasn't been any good team that has yo-yoed so extremely in their results and occasionally in their performances. So that does give one pause, but the performances have been so dominant. And again, even after you adjust for opponent quality, have remained so dominant that it's hard not to think that they are pretty definitively top four. I remember saying, I don't know, a month into the season that they were the one team that I really couldn't get a handle on. And that was because those performances maybe were a little bit more conservative as they were feeling their way through Mock Lynn's new tactical approach and trying to work Evelyn EJ into the system. Well, EJ's worked in now. And when you drop so severely in the hole in terms of production from a player like Manaka to somebody like Erica Parkinson, who granted is just getting her sea legs, but hasn't been particularly impressive. It seems as though Lind has been able to find different places to shift progression responsibility without losing any downturn in production at the end of the day. So they look like they are just interested in being a front-footed, counterattacking monster. And it's small sample, but the split in Ashley Sanchez's dribbling numbers from before the break to after the break are quite astonishing. I mean, her expected goal production is also quite astonishing. She's nearly doubled her XG per 96 over the last 7 weeks compared to the first part of the season. She and EJ are finding this very, very interesting rhythm where they're getting more creation from wide rather than from the center. And maybe opponents will start adjusting to that, and they're just not used to seeing North Carolina play this way, at least in the sense that, in order to, pay attention to wide channels, you had to know, where Sanchez and Manaka were moving, which one was going in to out and which one was going out to in. And having Rauk and, to a certain extent, Ryan Williams now being the main foci, and also having Riley Jackson also coming
Riley
deep,
Jackson, yeah,
to give you that central progression, but not doing it in the hole. She's doing it from the 8. She's playing the 8 now. That's just giving opponents more to think about because they're just not used to seeing it in the way that it's being deployed. And they are pressing their advantage when the opportunities arise, as we saw against Orlando and Denver, and to a certain extent in the second Washington game and in the Utah game. So it's incredibly impressive. And because those results have been so dominant, they're sitting in second place right now on adjusted XG differential. that doesn't feel too far off, especially when you look at how clustered 2nd through 5th is on that leaderboard. Like, they feel like they should be competing for a home game in the quarterfinals, you know?
I'd power rank them 4 or 5 right now, just in this league. I think the only thing that drops them out of that elite class for me is just the defense is just not as elite as everyone else is, that you would sort of put above them. But if the question is, how do you replace losing Manaka Matsukubo? The answer very clearly from Maklind has been, you lean even further into your biggest other superstar and you make them the focal point. And I really think that sort of the attack has a handful of the architects of why this works. You have a handful of different things going. You have really high volume possession by Ashley Sanchez. Get the ball to Sanchez. Sanchez is almost always, if not always, the highest player up the pitch. Yeah. And she sets the tone on the break. And she uses her dribbling not only to beat opponents, but to let the rest of the attack catch up and fill the channels so that she can pick passes or pick seams to dribble into and shoot. And then you have Evelyn EJ, who is becoming one of the most productive strikers in the league at A, getting in really good shooting locations, and B, doing well with her opportunities in said good shooting locations. The knock on her in the first half of this season was that she wasn't finishing her chances, which was a little bit true. And it leveled out toward the end, but she had a long dry spell to start this season where she was racking up XG and not scoring. Now she's pumping them in. She's overperforming her XG, but not in a crazy way. It's just all of these shots. Her post-break shot map is just like a dream cluster.
Yeah. Central, just inside the 6-yard box.
Yeah. It's where in hockey you stick a forward to redirect everything. And I think thinking about her as like a big hockey forward unit is not a bad thought here, because she finds herself in these locations. She is so smart with her body and with the way she sort of shields and creates chances from these places that she is creating from 10 yards and closer good shooting chances constantly. Like not just like quality chances as we define them by like 0.15. She's creating 0.3 and 0.4 and 0.5 chances like on the regular in front of goal at this point. And it's really impressive. I mean, she's got 14 shots since the break with 4.22 XG. That is ridiculous quality per shot.
Yeah, and even though she is overperforming to a certain extent, like she is creating more XG these last 7 games than she was in the first 11. Question for you, her XG and her receiving G+ were pretty well aligned in the first part of the season, and that is usually to be expected, especially with a striker, because you need to get yourself into good positions in order to take high-quality chances, and so your receiving G+ should match that. Whereas these last 7 games, the XG is great, but her receiving G+ is actually below average relative to other number 9s. Any interesting signal there, or is it just small sample noise?
That feels like really small sample noise to me. I think that what we've watched her do, some of these chances have been defined as quote unquote individual play. I don't know how we are. I think some of that is picking up garbage in the box and converting it. Yeah. You have to be, which doesn't count toward your receiving score, but you have to be in the right place to pick up the garbage.
I think that's probably right. Yeah.
And, so whether it is second phase of a corner kick that bounces around and ends up at your feet, even though it wasn't a pass.
Rebounds.
Yeah, rebounds. Those aren't factors in this. And yet Evelyn EJ, I think the thing that you look at, and I'll put this in, you'll be looking at it on, if you're watching the show right now, when you pair these two shot maps with each other, the thing that doesn't change is the cluster from where she's shooting. So it means that the positioning she's getting herself in is always really good. 4 shots. And whether she is on the end of a progressive pass or whether she's cleaning up some garbage that landed at her feet, she is staking the most valuable real estate on the pitch for a striker as her own and not really being bullied out of it.
Yeah.
So that paired with, it's funny because that paired with Ashley Sanchez is what you think of when you think of like a target guy, dribbly guy, striker tandem. It just so happens that the Ashley Sanchez role is coming from out wide as opposed to playing underneath. Ashley Sanchez, I think at this point, there are players who are putting up more production-wise than her. And there's a lot of noise about Trinity Rodman MVP. But if you were going to make a non-MVP, if you're going to make a non-G plus MVP argument, you'd be pretty hard-pressed to take a look at Ashley Sanchez and not consider it. Because what she did in the first half of the season was overperform her XG. She was getting lucky. What she's doing in this second half of the season is completely altering her game to satisfy the absence of Manaka Matsukubo. Still effective, but now she's dribbling more, taking on more, winning those chances and creating. And now she is basically scoring in line with her XG. She's creating good chances for herself and finishing them. It's a remarkable. We'll get to this later, but like I think at this point, if you wanted to take a look at the first half of the season and say that was Ashley Sanchez noise and she's coming back down to earth, yada yada yada, fine. What she's done in this second half, and it's 640 minutes, so it's a small sample and it can change, has been utterly dominant, doing basically anything that is asked of her to create chances. So I for me, like she is the engine that runs this whole thing. I think EJ is diminished without her. I think she is.
We can't
and every team,
question.
huh?
We can't.
No, exactly. Chicken or egg there, but like, I think that it is really, really hard to imagine an effective North Carolina Courage franchise right now without the Sanchez, to borrow somebody else with that last name's nickname, without her being like the focal point. She looked at the Manaka absence and sort of picked up all that work, shuttled a little of it to Riley Jackson, but the rest of it she's done.
And really don't discount Rauk here. Like the difference between having Danny Weatherholt as your left back in the first part of the year to Rauk, like you have Jackson coming from center right to try and find combinations. But with the way that Sanchez does her out to in level of movement, the place that she's getting the ball from is from those attacking actions on the over or underlap from Rauk. And Weatherholt wasn't giving her that in the first part of the year. Like she was finding combinations with Manaka, and that is allowing the team to stretch and make opposing right backs and right-sided center backs have to make a choice about whether they're going to go touchline or they're going to stay compact closer to the middle. And Rauk is really forcing them into some bad decisions, like once she and Sanchez link up, you know? So it's the fact that like you take Manaka away and then you spread equivalent levels of chance creation across two, maybe even three players, and they all play in different parts of the field, you know? So you just can't box them in. You know?
Yeah.
And again, like there may be countermeasures here, like once oppositions get more tape on how they're doing it, and we probably won't see as garish a series of XG splits the way that we did in those games against Denver or Utah or Orlando. But still reducing those kinds of numbers significantly still means that North Carolina will probably be consistently outplaying their opponents. So it's a couple of things. It's Mocklin being smart enough to know how to like adjust tactical responsibility in the absence of a really strong player, but it's also very not insignificantly key players coming back from injury. Like, yeah, you didn't have Rauk for a lot of the first part of the year, and now you do. Or having Natalie Jacobs, looks like she and Macy Bell are going to be the primary center back partnership if they both stay healthy rather than Uno Shiragaki. Like, that has knock-on effects as well. So I think that you get key contributors coming back from injury and really smart tactical adjustments on top of having really good players already. And you are forever defeating the Sean Nahas principles that made this North Carolina Tech look the way that it did across those 3+ years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to believe that this version of the North Carolina Courage is made up largely of the players that played in this team last year and 2 years ago,
Yeah.
because they're being deployed in completely different ways. You bring up Feli Rauch, and I think one of the things that we were excited about when she joined North Carolina years ago is that we were going to get this like really dynamic attacking wide fullback. And only now are we sort of seeing like Feli Rauch being asked to do all the things that Feli Rauch's profile when she came over suggested that she was excellent at. And I think Macklin deserves a lot of credit for putting a bunch of players in positions that they are well suited for to succeed. And in the case of Ashley Sanchez, changing her role to take on some of what Manaka did and trusting that she can also do that. And she can, and she has. I also would love to shout out Shinomi Koyama, who has been an utter metronome at the base of this midfield, who is doing all of the things in a side that is attempting to attack consistently and directly, is doing that counterweight stuff, which is play that pass that opens the next pass up, that play that pass to Riley Jackson that opens her to play a vertical ball, play that pass to Feli Rauch that opens them to break down a sideline. I think she's been very, very consistent there, and defensively never really getting out of shape, so that when North Carolina do get broken against, there is like a defensive structure that looks okay.
Yeah, I mean, like when they play with 2 center backs over these last several games, there is a literally perfectly symmetrical spot in between Bell and Jacobs or Bell and Uno, whatever the combination may be, for Koyama to fill. Either when they're playing out in a rest defense, although Koyama's often pushed ahead of the center backs to try and, make Jackson's progressions work. But then out of position, she's dropping in between them or playing tight to their line to shield them. And Shinomi was not the defense first central midfielder upon entering the league. That wasn't necessarily her profile, but like this is what Mocklin's asking her to do. And their defensive performance is like a hair worse after the break than it was before it, but barely.
That feels noisy. Yeah.
1000%. And then like if you look across the whole season, as you mentioned at the top of the segment, like they are smack dab in the middle of the leaderboard in terms of XG allowed per game. So it's not, North Carolina defenses of old necessarily, but like the trade-off has been you are still organizing your defense to give you enough cover that Kaylin Sheridan's not going to have an overwhelming amount of work to do. And then what you're getting on the other end is goals. And so your XG splits, your goal differential, and more often than not, your results are emphatically going in the right direction.
The other thing that I think is also worth mentioning here, and if the question is how do you replace a superstar, the answer is you get better performances out of so many different pieces, and then you take whatever your second best player was and you craft them into that superstar. The other person whose performances, she's still underwater, have gotten better, even if the score lines don't necessarily reflect that, is Kaylin Sheridan, whose shot stopping is like coming back a lot closer toward what an average shot stopper looks like, which is not where she was 2 months ago.
Yeah.
She was a lot of what you could attribute as North Carolina underperformance was simply her just not being that good for the first half of this season. And now she's sort of resembling a Kaylin Sheridan of old. And if she continues to have a strong second half, I think, again, this is not going to be the best team in the league, but this is going to be a team that come playoff time with a good seeding can really fuck some people up.
And she generally remains underexposed, which is good. Like the difficulty of the shots that she faces is basically league average, but they're certainly not more difficult than the average goalkeeper. And she faces among the fewest shots in the league. She only faces 4 shots a game. So like she struggled in a very, very, very small sample in the first handful of games. And now she's doing very, 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 very well in a small sample. And you add it up, it's like you're probably pound for pound, your league average keeper. But like That's fine. And there's going to be maybe a little bit more XG that that your defense is going to allow than maybe you as Kalen Sheridan, legendary goalkeeper, would prefer, but it's still a manageable amount that still isn't leading to a large amount of like difficult shots for you to deal with. So as long as the sample noise is going in the right direction, then you don't have too much to stress about. And so far, these last several games, she's looked really, really good. Like really, really good. Not just on her shot stopping, but like in every aspect of the game.
Yeah. I will say that if Ashley Sanchez is able to continue keeping up her 0.55 non-penalty XG per 96 that she's been doing in the second half of the season, and is able to continue generating 0.17 XG per shot, Ashley Sanchez from a wing position. Ashley Sanchez is going to be, it's going to be hard. She got a big old XG bump from her opener. One of the better goals you'll see this year, which was initially attributed as an Ashley Sanchez assist to an Ashley Sanchez goal, which I thought was not that generous, but the touch is so good that you could consider it that. Not so generous to the ball in, but if Ashley Sanchez continues creating high quality shots constantly, and if Evelyn EJ continues just raking from the center of the box, this North Carolina team is going to continue scoring a lot of goals. Ashley Sanchez, to go back to a thing that we were talking about in regards to Ali Center, in the second half of this season, Ashley Sanchez has taken 4 shots from outside the box? 5 total? She's taken sub a game. That's not what you expect from a winger who is dribbling around the box a lot and is being tasked with creating offense. So it means she's making good decisions a lot of the time. And it's just, it's so impressive. It's what's happening here.
And not what
between the two of them.
And not what the first 11 games would have indicated. That,
no,
like you said, like it seems like she was going to come back down to earth. Instead, she's just turned on the Jets. And now she like 1 goal off of the Golden Boot lead now. Something like that.
Yeah, what does she have now? She has 10? 11?
I think she's got 11.
She's got 11? So that would put
Band
her...
is on 12?
Is that right? Or is Banda on 11? Is she tied? This is so funny. We do this all the time, wherein we are so familiar with the underlying numbers that we sometimes forget who's just like leading the Golden Boot race. It's Banda with 12. But it's like we are paying so much more attention to... Like, I was surprised to find out that Pietra Torden with 15 gold contributions is leading the league. I was like, interesting. I guess that makes sense now. Yeah. Ashley Sanchez is second in the Golden Boot race. And if the first half was luck, this second half is anything but that.
But we also then need to raise the specter of sample size, because
totally.
We didn't get remaining strength of schedule projections for this week, but based on last week, and we'd only be removing 1 game. Granted, it would be a difficult one, but they had the 3rd hardest remaining schedule as of right before the Denver game, the midweek Denver game. But even after you remove that Denver game on the road and
the Washington
game, like, it's still not the gentlest of schedules. At least in the immediate term over the next 3 games, like, they're all at home and they're playing They're playing at home against Houston, Boston, and Angel City. There's probably 7, maybe even 9 points there to get, which will be awesome for their top 4 hopes. But after that, it's Kansas City on the road. 2 weeks later, it's San Diego on the road. Then they got Gotham at home, Utah on the road, Seattle on the road, which could be winnable, but that's never going to be fun. Then they got the return fixture at home against San Diego. Those are a lot of tough games now in front of them.
Yeah, I think if I'm game planning to play against North Carolina at this point, I'm going and looking at the second half of the Spirit game and also the Bay game.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that this team doesn't have places that you can't attack them. So much of last year when you were playing the North Carolina Courage was let anyone but Manaka beat you. And this year, I think the answer is let anyone but Ashley Sanchez beat you. Whether that means, at this point, it's really just making sure she doesn't get free runs. And when she steps inside, you have a defensive midfielder there to pick her up, in addition to a center back that is well placed to cut down the channel of the pass to Evelyn EJ. Like,
Well, what makes that difficult also is that like even Ali Schlegel's had a good like run of games,
yep.
and Ali Schlegel, while not like generating a whole lot of shots or key passes, like what do we always say about Ali Schlegel? Use her sparingly and use her correctly. And so far, Macklin has been doing that these last handful of weeks, where like she's getting great looks on goal, she's having opportunities to like feed other players. And it's not like Ryan Williams, just because Felly Rauk is back, is going to stop being Ryan Williams, you know? So it seems like what you have to do is also, in order to like answer North Carolina's charge, is to beat that press, like win the ball and then try and beat the press quickly, since they are often pushed pretty high up. Like that's easier said than done based on the way the last few weeks have been going. But then again, it's a really hard run after we get these 3 softer home games out of the way. So they might come back to earth, but by that point, maybe they will have just gotten enough of a collection of banked points that they'll be just in a very, very comfortable position for November. We'll see.
Yeah, that is all of that's correct, which is you do have to shut down Ashley Sanchez in whatever way you can. And you have to hope that she reverts to a version of herself that hasn't really shown up this year and makes less than stellar decisions. But you're right. I also think that Riley Jackson filling the channel is another option for Ashley Sanchez. Ali Schlegel has been a good option. Ryan Williams continues to be one of the best fullbacks in this league. This team is solid.
It's just weird to be able to talk about a North Carolina Courage team that we find not only good, but interesting.
Yeah,
you know,
they've been at times good and not interesting. They've been at times not good and also not interesting. Rarely have we been treated. It's been approaching half a decade that we could say this North Carolina Courage team is both good and interesting.
And like, their decision to finally like market their goddamn games and get people to show up to WakeMed is working. It continues to work. It hasn't been an early season fluke. They didn't sell out their last home game, but I mean, they've got, an average of 8,000 a game in a 10,000 seater are numbers that North Carolina's just never achieved in their long, long history, even during the years where they were the best team in the world. Like on the field and off the field right now, everything just seems to be working, which like during the summer break, when Manaka got moved, who would have thought, you know? So we'll see if they can keep it up.
Yeah, credit here to the crew that put this team together and decided to hire Macklin.
Yeah, but Kerry Bally is not necessarily a friend of the show, but like the 2 things that he does seem to have gotten right is bringing EJ in and hiring Lind. You know?
Yeah, I am here to, we are here to give flowers where flowers are due. This team seems really pretty well built and has endured a loss with a plan and frankly probably has room to spend if they want to.
Maybe not even a plan. Maybe it was a plan that they had to improvise on the fly, but they were smart about how they did that.
Yeah.
You know,
I think both of us picked them to finish 5th or 6th. I think I picked them 5th, maybe. We're staring at a team that if you'd told us that they were losing Manaka, we would have both dropped them down a peg or 2. Now, and again, it's small sample without her, I am not dropping them.
Yeah, I mean, they're projected for 6th right now in our average of the ASA and Larner Elam models, but that was before Portland lost Olivia Moultrie. And in Moultrie's absence, Portland probably slides down and North Carolina bumps up. So, but that also means like you're basically in a mix with Kansas City and San Diego for 3, 4, 5, and there's really no daylight between you in those projections. So randomness, parity, 30-game season, chaos, potential injuries, U20 World Cup effects, a whole litany of things that could allow the bounces to go their way, and they could be playing the quarterfinals at WakeMed.
Yeah, absolutely. When you sell Manaka and you are still in contention for a home playoff game, you've solved your problem pretty well. Outside of Croy Bethune, I don't think anybody is pushing the Emma Hayes envelope quite like Ashley Sanchez. Like you have to start asking questions.
Well, we got to see 2 things. I mean, it's awful to say, but Macario's continued injury problems and Moultrie's potential long-term injury problems could open up some spots in the depth chart for an attacking mid winger swing player.
And depending on what happened to Mal Swanson, if you think Mal Swanson's in the mix.
And so it's just a matter of, does Sanchez keep playing the way that she's been playing the last couple of months? And if the answer is yes, I guess we'll see what Emma Hayes does in October.
Yeah. Ashley Sanchez couldn't be doing more right now to force the question.
Yes. As players like to say, I can only control what I can control. And Ashley Sanchez is really controlling what she can control.
It's really controlling it.
So
that's right.
Anyway.
Anything else you got?
Nope. Thank you so much for listening, as always. If you have not joined our Patreon yet, please click the link in the show notes. $6 a month gets you 4 exclusive bonus episodes every single month, plus access to Discord and a bunch of other cool stuff. We've also got our merch store. Limited edition XOG scars are still available. You can click the link in the show notes for those. Do everything you're supposed to do with podcasts. Rate us 5 stars, drop us a kind review in your podcatcher of choice. Tell all your friends about us. Follow us on social media at XOwnGoals. That's the letter XOwnGoals on all channels. Really cool video stuff that is not part of the main feed of the podcast, showing up on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, including our Anatomy of / Talkin' Radar series. And then if you believe we've made an own goal, please email us at xog@xowngoals.com. That's the letter XOG at the letter xowngoals.com. We will be back with you on Patreon later this week, and then we will be on main feed next week.